It's Rick Sincere with MTMV Sports. I'm so blessed, geeked, overjoyed to be joined today by Blue of the Bluebloods Podcast. Listen, y'all, I met him at the Legacy Bowl, and look, from that moment, I was like, y'all, I got to get this dude on the show. He's been killing it. I can't wait to hop into this interview with Blue. Look, right after this, y'all know how we do. We're going to drop the logo, music, and stuff like that, and right after that, we'll hop into this amazing interview with none other than Blue of the Bluebloods CFB Podcast. All right, y'all. Blue, how you doing, man? What's good?
What's good, man? Hey, I appreciate you, inviting me on here, man. I've been looking forward to it ever since, we caught up down there in New Orleans, man. So definitely appreciate you having me.
Yo, bro, look, man, I've been seeing you do a lot of interviews, right? It's like constant interviews. You're dropping them all the time, bro. Listen, how do you like connecting with the players?
Man, it's something that up until NIL, I never really thought I'd see our show go in that direction just because, back in the day, schools really didn't allow players to have the freedom to do interviews based on the fact that people would be offering them money. And I never wanted to mess with anybody's eligibility. But as NIL became a thing and as promoting players became such a big deal, I thought that, why not try to take that route? And it started out with a handful of interviews last year, man. And we're approaching almost our 100th interview in just like this past year. And, for our show, we've interviewed players from Portland State down to Jacksonville State to Jackson State to FAMU up to Sacred Heart. I mean, we've covered so many of the FCS schools. We've covered some of the FBS ones. And I mean, I can't thank the players enough because our show wouldn't be what it was without them. But I love connecting with them, getting to talk to them off camera, off the recording, and just kind of seeing what they're like as people. And there's a few, man, that I still talk to every now and then, just kind of catch up. And man, it's been a blessing for sure.
Bro, look, and you do a great job with it. And I know sometimes it's really, it's an art. It's an art form, right? It's an art form to hop into those kind of talks, man. So I'm proud of you for doing what you're doing. And 100
Appreciate it.
interviews, bro, time on task, my man. You killing it.
Hey, I appreciate it, man.
Yo, let's dive in, man. Look, it's been an incredible HBCU offseason. We've seen so many moves, bro. I'm talking about ridiculous moves that we've seen over the course of this offseason. Talk to me about what has been the most surprising move for you of the HBCU offseason.
I mean, I guess for surprising moves, one, you can kind of go a holistic view. And, there was a lot of questions last year. Could the rest of the SWAC, could the rest of the country keep up with like the pace that Jackson State was setting? I mean, Coach Prime came in and just set the world on fire, and it continued with Travis Hunter, landing Kevin Coleman, another 4-star. But when you look at FAMU, you look at Alabama A&M, Southern, Grambling, a lot of these other schools, they've been keeping pace and they brought in a lot of talent. When you look at Holloway, 4-star from UCLA, coming into Grambling, Jordan Moore going to FAMU, former 4-star out of, I believe it was the SMU. I mean, all these schools have picked up their recruiting, picked up their social media presence. So I think the first shocking thing is the rest of the schools picked it up so quickly. But when you look at, I just feel like the overall recruiting impact of what the SWAC and HBCU football is doing, I don't know if anyone foresaw that coming down the pipeline, where I believe in the top 10 of the FCS, there were like 4 or 5 SWAC teams in the top 10 of the FCS just recruiting at an all-time level. But I feel like Alabama A&M specifically bringing in, I believe it was 34 or 35 total transfers, 14 of those being DBs. Connell Maynard said there was too many points on the scoreboard at that homecoming game against Jackson State. I was there. The fans were just, I think the fans were even shocked that they put up 61 points on them. So to see the aggressiveness of Connell Maynard and for them to land 30 plus transfers was probably, I would say, the more shocking thing of the offseason.
Yo, that's remarkable, bro. I'm looking at what's going on with Alabama State right now and them pulling in Demetrius Davis, right?
Mhm.
Yo, you look at that in the Halloween. If you can compare those moves, bro, which move do you think will be most effective? I talked to Hugh Jackson. He's talked about wanting to have a QB1, right? And they're still looking for that person after the spring. If you look at that move and Halloween move, right? Which move do you think will be most impactful this season?
I'm a little biased, man. I'm an Auburn grad. I was in school with D Davis, and so for me, I'm gonna ride with my guy D Davis. Holloway's got a big arm. He's just a bigger guy. I mean, I believe he's 6'4", 6'5", up in the 220s, and he can sling it. But I feel like in the high school level, he wasn't as accomplished as D Davis. You're looking at a kid, man, that, I mean, to put it in perspective, was the winningest quarterback in Texas high school football history, passing Kyler Murray during his time in North Shore. I believe as a starter, he lost one game. He was like 50-1. And then as a student in North Shore, only lost three total games. Just being a student there, even as a freshman. So 3 straight state championships, set all kind of records, had almost 10,000 passing yards, well over 120 passing touchdowns, rushed for over 2,000 yards, had over 50 rushing touchdowns. What D Davis is going to bring, man, is Lamar Jackson type athleticism. The kid is just that explosive, and when you watch his highlights, there's just as many with his feet as there are with his arm, and his deep ball is so beautiful. And when you're looking at the needs for both of these teams, Grambling needed a quarterback really bad, but so did Alabama State. But for me, Alabama State had better options already in house than for me Alabama State did. Really, Ryan Nettles took a large step back from what I thought he was. I had him as a top 5 SWAC QB leaving the spring season, and he just didn't live up to that. So I really like what D Davis is going to bring to Alabama State. So I'm going to ride with D Davis right now, but I still think Holloway is probably going to come away as QB1 at Grambling as well.
Wow, man. Look, I saw the same thing you saw on film looking at his highlights. They were incredible, right? You saw I mean, I saw accuracy, but I also saw incredible athleticism. And I'm talking about real speed. And so I know that you bring a guy like that into, a situation and it's like, well, I would say this. A few years ago, if he comes into the SWAC, and I think he takes over the SWAC completely, right? Now,
Right.
what we're seeing this year, what we're seeing the increase in transfers, what we're seeing, I mean, just overall roster. When I look at that, I don't know if he has the same impact, right? That would have happened years ago, right? I'm wondering if the SWAC is now ready for a challenge like this. What do you think?
They're definitely ready. I think there's some really good defenses. I mean, when you look at Jackson State and FAMU, I believe they both ranked top 10 in the FCS in defense last year. Alabama State has a history of having a great defense. I think Southern returned a lot of talent, starting with Jordan Lewis on that front seven. And they also went out and got a great kid in Trey Lang. So I think Southern's defense is going to be there. Grambling was solid last year. So I think there's a lot of strong defenses. And when you're looking at the question marks around the SWAC, the Texas Southerns, the Alabama A&Ms that had bottom level defenses, I feel like they all took a step forward this all season. And when you're looking at a Shador Sanders, when you're looking at an Andrew Body, the SWAC, as much as they had great years, there were games where they ultimately didn't have a great game. Shador didn't play well for 3.5 quarters against Southern. Andrew Body didn't have a great game against Jackson State when they went over to the vet. So there's defenses in the SWAC that are going to be prepared, that are going to have an answer for D Davis, and he's going to have to come prepared. So I don't think he's going to come in and everyone's just not going to know how to defend him. He's going to have to earn it. So I do think the SWAC is a little bit more prepared to have a talent like D Davis come into the SWAC.
Yeah, I felt like when Devontae Kincaid came in and he was playing for Grambling, they weren't prepared, right? Like across the board, and you saw Grambling just wreck shop. They caught up eventually at the end, right? You saw that in Celebration Bowl. But when he came in, bro, it was really hard. Him and Martez Carter basically ran through the SWAC during that point. And so I see what you're saying. I think nowadays, I think they are more ready, right? We have so much talent across the board. I think the SWAC is ready. Let me ask, in your opinion, who do you think made the biggest improvements this offseason?
I mean, looking at it for me, it probably, there's still question marks, and of course, all the players won't, possibly can't develop. But for me, it has to be A&M on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, they're probably going to replace, man, 10 out of 11 starters. in all actuality, from the defensive tackles to the ends, back to the linebackers to the secondary. They're all going to take a step forward. Now, they do lose Akil Glass, but I think Jaron Williams and Quincy Casey are two quality replacements, I'd say. The wide receiver spot's still loaded. They returned Gary Quarles at the running back spot, so the offense was never going to be a question under Maynard, but that defense has so much talent. They got 2 or 3 4-stars to shore up that secondary. They got a kid named Daryl Middleton, a defensive tackle who's 6'7", 290 from Tennessee. Looks like he's going to be a stud. They got a solid pass rusher out of North Texas. That linebacking spot has a nice transfer in Day. I believe it's O'Coleman out from Stephen F. Austin, who has just almost made a run in the FCS playoffs. So they have a lot of guys with experience that I think are going to be able to come in and make an impact. So right now, I'm going to slightly lean Alabama A&M over Grambling.
Wow. Okay. That hurts a little bit. But I feel it. Okay, cool. So in your opinion, which teams do you believe still have some work to do this offseason?
I feel like PV, man. PV lost everybody, it feels like. I mean, Jawan Pass is gone. They lose, I believe they're two of their top 3 wide receivers, I believe, are gone. They have some transfers on the defensive side of the ball. And also, I believe Bubba had a later start than most coaches. That coaching search lasted probably, for me, 2 to 3 weeks longer than it should have. Like, you got to get that moving. You cannot take your time like you did. And there was a lot of question marks surrounding the interview process and a lot of drama and controversy over who they were going to hire. For me, it's PV. You're coming off of a SWAC championship appearance. You can't go from best in the division to last. You're going to have to bring us some talent. And they've been one of the more quiet teams on the recruiting trail in the SWAC, and it's just because of the sure talent that all these other SWAC teams are bringing. Then a close second is probably Bethune. Yes, you bring in Jalen, former Jackson State quarterback. Kamari Everett comes back at tight end, who we know what he's made of. That's an NFL talent right there at the tight end spot. I mean, what he was doing with the poor quarterback play they had last year was spectacular. But I haven't heard anything out of Bethune-Cookman. Nothing from Terry Sims. I really want to see them get some positive momentum, but they have a lot to work on. They were atrocious last year on the offensive side of the ball through the air. I need to see how they fix that, and I don't know if Jalen Jones is going to be the answer.
Wow. Okay. So when you look at players, right, across the board, we saw some players break out last season. James Houston had a remarkable season, right? Isaiah Land had a remarkable season. I mean, both leading FCS in sacks. And so we saw breakouts for them. You saw breakout for Shador, came in, right, winning an award immediately, right? As freshman of the year, basically. So you saw a lot of breakouts last season. Talk to me about the possible breakouts that we can see this upcoming season.
I mean, I think the easy one, I won't go too much into it, is D Davis. I mean, I love what he brings to the QB position, but outside of him, I really like a safety that FAMU got, Jordan Moore. He comes in from the state of Texas, had a just so much potential, man. One of the top players in the country in his recruiting class, a former 4-star. I think he is going to play a large role in trying to ease the loss of both Antoine Collier and Marquise Bell. That safety spot was a huge question mark, but I really, really like what Jordan Moore brings in terms of athleticism, versatility, and also his ball skills. When he gets his hands on the ball, it can go the other way extremely fast. And on FAMU side, I think Isaiah Majors too. You saw him in the spring game with the pick 6 off of Musa. He's going to be super athletic coming out of Indy Community College. He played Mike linebacker. He played outside linebacker. He stepped down at edge. He's played box safety. He's played slot corner. His versatility, along with more, I think, is going to shore up the back end of that defense. And then I don't know if you consider him a breakout, man. I'll let you kind of judge me on this, but Andrew Body for me this coming year, if he can develop his accuracy and consistency, I think he is a legit SWAC Offensive Player of the Year contender. I mean, for me, he's QB2 right now in the conference, slightly behind Shador. But if Andrew Body can put it together this year and just be a tad bit more consistent, I think Andrew Body can set the world on fire. So I'm going to go with Andrew Body as my other breakout player in the SWAC.
Man, I'm actually looking forward to what's going to happen. I think Maurice Washington down in Grambling, right?
Yep.
Running back. I want to see what happens with him. When I look at his highlights from when he was with Nebraska, I was like, yo, that's ridiculous, right? And if he brings that to the SWAC, then I mean, I don't know what the ceiling is for him, right? If he's able to bring that same play that he brought there, to Gremlin, I think it's going to be ridiculous. And so I'm looking for him to break out. I need to know this, and keep it a buck with me, right? When you look at Shador from last year, and you saw what happened in the Celebration Bowl, but you also see what he's doing in the offseason, right? You see what's happening. He's training with Tom Brady. You kind of see him some highlights in practice, right? When you look at him, what do you expect to see from him this season? Do you expect to see a huge leap from last season to this season, or do you expect to see a little bit more of what we saw from him last season?
For me, when you're a player of his caliber, like everyone wants to claim he is, I need to see Shador take that next step to a top 5 FCS quarterback. I think, you can make argument he's probably top 15 last year. I know some people would argue that he was number one. He wasn't. But I need to see Shador take that step for a top 5 QB. I just want to see more consistency. And I think it starts with, did Jackson State fix the O-line problem? I think when you look at his struggles in the Celebration Bowl, it's because the offensive line was getting their, whooped play in and play out. I mean, there were times where he would take the snap, and before he even got his hips turned, there were 2 or 3 guys in the backfield. And I don't care if you're Tom Brady, I don't care if you're Patrick Mahomes, there's nothing you can do with that. And then what I think happened is he got happy feet because of that. And so you would start rolling out of the pocket, and Shador, that's not where he makes his money. If he could sit in the pocket, he can pick apart a lot of these SWAC defenses. But for me, it's always going to start with the offensive line. But I think he's going to take a small step forward, man. But I do think right now you still have to think the next step for him is to win the SWAC Offensive Player of the Year, and that should be his main goal: is be a top 5 QB in the FCS and win SWAC Offensive Player of the Year. And I think if he takes those 2 steps and he gets his touchdowns up a little bit more, gets a bit, keeps that efficiency up, and maybe just get a few more yards and not have a game like he had against Southern and South Carolina State, man, I don't know how you can have any complaints about his game.
Wow. So which games are you most looking forward to this upcoming season? I know there's a few on my calendar right now, right? That FAMU Jackson State, FAMU Grambling, Jackson State Grambling, all those games are games that I gotta see. Right. What are some games for you that you're like, man, I gotta catch those games next season?
I'll give you some out of conference and some in conference. For me, it starts with Stephen F. Austin coming to Alcorn. That is going to be a giant game for Fred McNair and Alcorn, because we know what the narrative is with the SWAC and out of conference. They don't win those typically, especially against good FCS teams. And Stephen F. Austin was in the playoffs last year. I think they'll win the WAC this year. And for me, man, they're my sleeper to make it to the Final Four this year for the FCS playoffs. I think they have a chance to get to the semifinals, if not the quarterfinals. That team's that good. They've returned like 16 All-Americans on that team. Like 16 of the 22 All-Americans they had were freshmen or sophomore. That team is loaded with Trey Self, with Xavier Gibson, the best wide receiver in the FCS. They're coming to Lorman. That is a statement game for the SWAC. And if you're Alcorn, you could not get blown out in that game. Also, Valley, I think that game against Tarleton State early in the season, who just came up from D2, has a great quarterback in Stephen Duncan, transferring from Western Kentucky. That game is almost a must win for the SWAC, just in terms of perception only, and also getting Vincent, Nancy, and Valley on the start the season out on the right foot. So I really love those. And of course, that Campbell Jackson State game for homecoming, that is a giant. If you're Jackson State, I don't care if they go on and win the Celebration Bowl. I don't care if they win the SWAC. If you lose that game to Campbell, it's all for nothing, because the narrative around the country is going to be like, that's great. You won the SWAC, you won the Celebration Bowl, but you couldn't beat Campbell. And it's to battle the top 2 FCS recruiting classes. That is a huge game for the SWAC. And then in conference, of course, you got Jackson State FAMU, but that Jackson State Grambling week 3 is going to set social media, the TV world ablaze. Hugh Jackson versus Deion Sanders, Halloween versus Shador. Everything's on the line there. I'm absolutely cannot wait for that game, man. So that's probably the number one SWAC conference game that I cannot wait for. And then, of course, Andrew Body Shador rematch, man. Top 2 QBs in the SWAC. I can't wait for that one either. It's also in Houston this year, so I'm excited to see what that turnout is. And And I can't wait to see those two great QBs go head to head.
Yo, man, hey, I love that, bro. I appreciate you bringing it like that, bro. You killing it.
Appreciate it.
Yo, let's talk about the issues that are going on right now in the MEAC. You see a lot of stuff happening, and you see, I don't know if this is an exodus or like a big I don't know what's happening, but it's a little scary to me. Are you concerned about some of the things that are going on in the MEAC with teams leaving, and how do you believe this all plays out at the end?
It's over, man. I mean, like, it might as well just have the memorial right now. RIP the MEAC 1970 to 2022, or maybe 2023 if they can make it that far. I mean, it's that bad, man. I mean, it started, of course, when Savannah State couldn't make it to D1. They had to drop back down to D2, so that was one of the first losses. Then North Carolina A&T dips out. That's one of your flagship programs. And then everyone's like, so for me, the way it looked, the MEAC was this ship, is sailing. Then a hole gets punched in when Savannah State drops out. Then another hole gets punched in North Carolina A&T, and no one patches the holes. You didn't try to add nobody. You didn't try to be proactive or innovative on how to save the conference. And then when FAMU and Bethune left, man, it was a ticking clock. I mean, it's like the movies, man, when they're cutting the wires on the bomb. As soon as that happened, they cut the wrong wire, and that timer started ticking way faster than they were expected. I mean, that clock went from like you had 20 minutes to figure it out to that now you're down to like 5 seconds. I mean, it's flying by. And so it just everything fell apart. And then, Hampton's gone. And then here we are, we're sitting here, and then Howard goes. And as much as they haven't had much athletic success, their women's basketball team did a nice job. They got some history. Their football has been atrocious these past few years. And we can get into the weeds of that on how they don't invest in athletics and whatever you want to do. But that program, the brand of Howard means something. When you think of HBCUs, Howard's one of the first ones even non-HBCU grads know about. And so that was a huge loss, regardless if they're not being super successful in athletics. And now you're sitting there with 5 football teams. You need 6 to have any postseason bids, whether it's the FCS playoffs, whether it's the NCAA tournament. You got to have a certain number of teams. And the problem with the MEAC, man, and I don't blame the current commissioner because it started with the last commissioner and the problems that was going on there, but they were kind of they were tied back from what they could do because let's just take the Southland for example. They could come up and get D2 teams. They can add other PWI schools. They had a lot of range of motion. When you're looking at the MEAC, well, you're not adding PWI schools, so that's 85% of the moves you can make wiped out right there. So you're really limited in what you were going to do. Savannah State just failed at D1. They can't come up. Are you going to try to reach out to Bowie? Are they ready to move up? None of the Atlanta schools like Clark Atlanta or anything are financially ready to move up. So what do you do? That's the problem, is like, as much as everyone wants a solution, what is the logical solution? So for me, man, it's over, really and truly. And I have it on good authority, being the FCS guy. The CAA is snatching one more team, whether it's Norfolk, whether it's South Carolina State. They want one more team to finish the South Division. So it's not over. They're going to get another team. And the other problem is the NEC has been trying to get Delaware State for like 5 or 10 years now. And they're going to probably get Delaware State now. And they're probably going to snatch Morgan while they're at it. And so the MEACs is sitting here and everyone's snatching pieces. What's going to be left? For me, they don't have really a way forward. I know Kentucky State potentially could move up, but there's rumors that the OVC might try to snatch Kentucky State before the MEAC. So there's a lot of moving factors. And so when the MEAC ultimately collapses, man, the Celebration Bowl will still be the Celebration Bowl. No one's going to lose out on that check. They'll do an at-large thing where the top-ranked HBCU, not in the playoffs, will get the invite, or the second-place SWAC team, whatever it is. The Celebration Bowl will be fine. But what's going to happen is whoever's left in the MEAC, let's say Morgan State goes and Norfolk goes, South Carolina State and the rest of those teams are going to be sitting there, and it's a ticking race, man. The OVC is going to reach out. The Big South's going to reach out. The SoCon's going to reach out. The ASUN's going to reach out, and the SWAC. It's going to come down to who makes the move first. So whoever wants those extra teams is going to have to be proactive and offer and bring something to the table. And the idea, I know the other idea is the HBCU Super Conference and the SWAC. It makes no sense. It's not going to work because let's just say you take the 5 teams left now, and then you add Tennessee State. That's 18 teams, man. how do you ever play out of conference with 18 teams with all the classics you still have to play? Because Jackson State's only playing one out of conference game because they have so many classics. Grambling's technically an out of conference game for Jackson State this year. And then you got Southern rotating off the schedule next year, which is why they have the SWAC Classic in Birmingham. There's going to be no flexibility in scheduling because Bethune and FAMU are always going to have to play. Jackson State's got to play like Alcorn, Tennessee State, Southern. I mean, they got so many classic games that they're going to have to play. It's just not going to work. And then also, man, you big Grambling guy here. Are you going to travel from Grambling to go play Morgan State?
I would.
You would, but would a large majority of the fan base take that trip?
It's funny. I realized that Jackson State travels well.
Yeah.
And I know that, and I saw that, right? Like you can see that clearly at the Celebration Bowl. I believe Grambling travels pretty okay, but man, we used to play some bangers against Morgan, right?
Yeah, it was way back
Yeah,
in the day.
way back in the day, right? Put some classics, right?
Yeah, that's such a mean trip. And I'll tell you who's gonna be mad. I talked to some people. FAMU and Bethune came to the SWAC because of travel costs because they were tired of going to Morgan State.
Yeah.
Man, do you know how mad those fans are going to be when they see Morgan State on that schedule if that happens in 3 or 4 years? You move to get away from your ex-girlfriend, and then she moves into the house next to you, and now you got to deal with her. It's like, man, they're going to be real upset because that's a long trip to Morgan, especially if you wind up in the same division or pod or whatever system they're going to use. That's not going to work. And then I got to ask you, outside of South Carolina State with Buddy Pugh and the history they bring, who's bringing a ton of value to the SWAC if you just add all those MEAC teams?
If you're adding Norfolk State, right, with their coach, I believe you're adding some value there.
Yeah, with Dawson Odoms. He's a stud. He's a stud.
Yeah, he's a stud. And he used to be at Southern, and kind of watching him, interact and engage, and seeing him in his style, and even talking to him at the Legacy Bowl, right? Man, I feel like wherever he goes, he's going to bring some success and he'll bring some value. And so I believe if you bring in a team like Norfolk State, then you have some value being added to the SWAC. But like you said, they may be courted by somebody else, and they may be out of here. So if they're out of here, right, then it gets dicey.
Yeah, it gets tough. And so, when you're looking at the SWAC, you got such positive momentum. The SWAC is one of the hottest conferences in the country.
Yeah, for sure.
I just don't see how adding Morgan State, adding a Delaware State helps you in any case. Like those teams aren't ready, I feel like, to take on what the SWAC's doing, because Delaware State, as sad as it is not recruiting on Jackson State's level. I don't even know if they're recruiting on Alabama A&M's level, etc. So I just don't know if there's any value. So the HBCU Super Conference, whether it sounds like a good idea or not, it's a pipe dream, and there's a lot of logistical issues that I don't think are worth the SWAC taking on. So really, what you're left with is these teams just got to kind of fend for themselves. And as sad as it is, man, it's really what it came to. And the way I put it, I got to jump on Scotty's show off script, and the way I put it is, conference realignment required all conferences to be proactive and to make moves and be ready to seize the moment. And the MEAC just kind of got caught standing with their hands in their pocket, man. And now they're sitting here and they're like, well, now it's too late to do anything. Like, you've already lost too many people. They should have been more proactive when A&T, FAMU, Bethune left. Now it's kind of too late, man. So I think it's really and truly not a if, but when the MEAC fails.
Man, I hate to hear that, yo. I got a chance to meet the new commissioner at the Celebration Bowl, and she was hopeful. She seemed very hopeful about her plan. And they've been pretty strategic about putting new people in places, and it seems that the moves haven't been enough, right, to keep teams from leaving. And I feel like, man, I kept sitting and thinking, what's the salvation? Where's the salvation? I was thinking about maybe Tennessee State, could that be? That'll be crazy in travel cost, right?
Yeah.
That'll be a little crazy in travel cost. But I was like, yo, who's the salvation? Who can they pull? And I started thinking, basically, like you said, the Clark Atlantas and teams like that. But then I'm like, okay, can they make the jump? Just like you mentioned. And everywhere I turned, I was like, there's no real clear-cut solution for what's going on right now. So the only thing I can see is a miracle. And I'm,
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
and I'm
I don't
hoping
want
for one.
I don't want anyone to blame the new commissioner because
It's not for
it
yeah.
was almost like she bought a house and the previous owner hid all the mold under the carpet, and then she like gets stuck with like this mess. And for her, like I said earlier, she can't do anything. Like there's no, it's like playing a chess game. Like there's no more moves. Like you're a sitting duck at this point, and as sad as it is, man, it's the truth that it's very very dim right now for the MEAC.
Um, this may be a stupid question, but somebody's gonna ask it. What about a merger? Um, what about a merger with the current teams that are there, right? In some type of, I don't know, yeah, maybe some type of merger. What about that? Is that possible?
It is like the OVC and Big South have a scheduling merger for the 2023 season, I believe, because they want to keep their auto bid. Um, but for me, those are the two conferences that possibly make sense. I mean, you looking at the Southland possibly, but the Southland's a long I mean, you got to be traveling to southeastern Louisiana and teams like that. So that's a long trip. So I mean, their best case with a merger is just to merge the entire conference with possibly the Big South, OVC, maybe the ASUN. The ASUN's a newer conference. It's only been out for I believe 2 seasons, maybe three. And they lost a few teams, but Kennesaw joined the division. They got Eastern Kentucky, they got Austin P. I mean, they got some really really good teams in the new ASUN that, or at least coming down the pipeline. So I think it's possible. I think for me, the best merger, the most logical merger would be with the OVC because you have Tennessee State in there. And if, let's say, Morgan State and Delaware State get picked off by the NEC, Norfolk, South Carolina State, and those teams can move into the OVC. You kind of you have Tennessee State there to make everyone, it makes a little bit more logical sense. And the OVC has been hemorrhaging teams due to conference expansion with the ASUN. I believe it was Murray State got picked off by the MVFC. So I think the OVC MEAC merger would probably make the most sense. The SoCon's in that area, but the way I explain it is the SoCon is very hesitant to move. They just like to sit back in the cut, let everything happen. We're good where we're at. We're cool with our Mercers and our ETSUs and everything. We're just going to chill. So I think it's the OVC, Big South, ASUN are probably the only three conferences that a merger really makes sense right now.
Bro, man, it's a tough thing, but I've been seeing people talk about it constantly, all over, right? Facebook and Twitter, right? Everybody keeps bringing it up. Man, I wish the best for our Commissioner Stills, and we'd be praying for that miracle for the MEAC. I'm gonna just say that. Let's dive into the draft a little bit. When we met at the Legacy Bowl, and we saw a lot of guys. And I asked you at that point, right? That's when I know you had the juice. I was like, "Yo, who have you been seeing? Like, who have you been seeing kill it?" Right over the course of this weekend, you kind of rattled off some names that you saw doing extremely well. I want to dive into the draft. I want to just kind of ask you, where do you see the first HBCU player coming off the board, and in which round?
Oh man, that's so hard because there's some really good prospects, but for me, I think it's going to come down to Tyree Carter and Marquise Bell. I
Mm,
think those are probably going to be the first two guys you see come off, and I think the earliest is probably third, fourth round. I think it's gonna be right in there, I would imagine. Because when you look at the second round, first round FCS prospects is going to be Trevor Penning and probably Christian Watson from North Dakota State. Those two guys are ungodly talented.
mm.
And then second round, you might have the offensive lineman for North Dakota, possibly a Troy Anderson from Montana State. And I would love to see Marquise Bell or Jatari Carter slide in there, but I think third round is probably where we're going to see them be taken. But I think those two guys are by far probably the top two HBCU prospects in my rankings. I think when you look at Marquise Bell's size, I mean, he has all the physical talent in the world. I mean, when you look at his measurables, man, if it's like you went to create a player and instant a blade, that's the safety you're building is Marquise Bell with the length, the speed, the ball skills. Like he is everything you want in a safety. And he's been a leader of FAMU's defense for 3 seasons now. I mean, that guy came in and he took when you think of FAMU's defense, it was Marquise Bell. That's the only guy you thought of for the longest time. And for Jatari Carter, Southern's offensive line has been just the target of every other SWAC school. When you were saying, whose offensive line do you want to be like? It's Southern. And so Tyree Carter was that guy. I went down there and covered the Senior Bowl. He had an outstanding week. I always thought he was a guard playing tackle as a former O lineman myself. I was like, please move this guy to guard. He's going to be a monster at guard. They played him at guard all week, had a giant week, was beating people like Perion Winfrey, who's going to be a second round pick out of Oklahoma, Travis Jones out of UConn. He was dominating people. He does really, really well on the double teams, working his way up to the linebackers, has great feet. For me, as long as he can continue to develop his pass blocking, he's going to be fine. So I would say it's going to come down to Marquise Bell and Tyree Carter, probably in the third or fourth round, around that spot.
Wow. Okay. So third or fourth round. All right. Now I need to know. Let's play a little quick game, right? I want to know how high you are on these guys, right? Number one being, I'm not too high on this guy, right? 10 being I'm super high on this guy, and I think he's going to be a great asset to an NFL team. So I'll just rattle off a name, and then as you hear the name, drop your rating. You ready?
Got it.
Awesome. Here we go. First name up, Jacoby Durant, South Carolina State corner.
Probably an 8. I like
8.
him, man. The length, ball skills, production, speed. He dominated the combine. I love his fluidity in his hips and feet. Jacoby Durant's a pro, man. I think he's going to slide down a little bit just because of playing at South Carolina State. I feel like he went on draft boards like a Marquise Bell was for some reason, but I think when you look at long-term pro potential, I can see Jacoby Durant being on an NFL roster in 10 years.
Dude, I keep hearing great things about this man, right?
Yeah.
I keep hearing great things about this young man. I talked to Emory Hunt from CBS. He had great things to say, right? Just recently, what's my guy, Kuiper? Kuiper came out and had something great to say about him, right? Dion, after the Celebration Bowl, had something great to say about him, right? I talked to, just everybody I've spoken to had great things to say about this dude, right? Oh my God, we just had an interview with Shaq Davis, right? And he talked about how much, how he brings it constantly at practice and how he's the best corner he's ever faced. Bro, I am like, I can't, I don't know. I can't say it enough. If NFL teams don't see it and they don't draft this kid, I don't know. It's a travesty if they don't draft him before round 5 to me.
He's getting drafted. Now, listen, if the 7th round ends and Jacoby Durant's not on the NFL roster, I'm going to come on YouTube and it's going to be a rant of all rants. He's an NFL guy. Like, he needs to be on a roster by the end of day 3.
Yeah, I'm definitely, I'm gonna do the same thing. You just let me know where it is, bro. I'll join you, man. It don't make no sense. It wouldn't make any sense to me, right? Even Ryan Wilson, we brought up from CBS too, and he reads off a list of his great qualities, bro. You don't have this many good people, have this many, individual smart people who scout the NFL constantly, talk great about a kid and him not get drafted. At least I would say at least before round 6 to me, right? I say someone that says I should hear his name. All right, cool, man. Let's go. The next guy up, Ezra Gray.
Oh man, I like Ezra, man. I got to talk to him at the combine and everything like that, man. But I'm going to give it a 4 in terms of long-term potential in the NFL. For me, the size is an issue. The injury history is an issue. It's just there's too many question marks with that. I think in terms of speed and explosiveness, he's there. In terms of longevity in the NFL, I feel like it's very limited.
Man, talking to Ezra, he's one of the most intelligent interviews ever, right?
Oh,
Like
yeah.
you get an interview with Ezra, man. You talking about a super intelligent young man. So loved him, super humble, bro. Jumped out of the wazoo at the freaking HBCU combine, right? Like did remarkable. As you said, it's super explosive. He didn't run the 40 there, but you can see the explosiveness in every other drill he did. I think I understand what you're saying, right? I understand what you're saying. My hopes are a little bit higher, but I do understand what you're saying. If somebody brings someone as a return dude, or the return guy, somebody who can work in, I feel like there's some hope there. But I see what you're saying there. Let's go to Will Adams, right? Let's go to Will Adams. What you got on Will Adams?
I'm gonna say probably a 4 or a 5 on Will. I think his
Ah,
athleticism is out of the roof, man, but when I was watching him kind of on the field and play, I felt like he would just get lost in space at times, and I feel like that's a big takeaway for me, especially when you're looking at a DB. I need you to be good in space. Like, that's the one thing I need. Even if you have a little bit below average athleticism, I need you to know where you are in space. And I felt like there were times in scrimmages and things like that where he just wasn't in the right place and he didn't make the right play. I think if you're looking for just a pure athlete to develop, he has some ability to do that. But for me, I just didn't see that it factor when I watched him live, man. In the combine, dominated. After that, man, looking at some film, I'm not sure if it translates directly to the on-field performance for him.
dude, Virginia State DB Will Adams, bro. Like watching him at the HBCU combine, he did go crazy, right? Jump
Yeah.
crazy, run crazy. Talking to him at the Legacy Bowl, he didn't get a chance to play in that. He was injured, but
Mhm.
talking to him at the Legacy Bowl, man, I'm hoping the best for him. I know NFL scouts like gathered around him at that
Oh, yeah.
HBCU combine, right? They were all around him all day at the HBCU combine. So I think somebody will take a flyer, right, at some point.
Mhm.
And I hope if he was kind of like deer in headlights, that's kind of what you're saying at times, right? If that's the case, then I hope that clears up when it's time, right? I
Oh,
hope
yeah.
that clears up when it's time, especially if he gets onto a good team that can help nurture him. All right, let's go. You know what? You gave me your thoughts on Marquise Bell.
Yeah,
Give
as
me
a
just
10.
yeah, for 10, bet. Okay, cool. McLean from Southern, what you got?
Imma give it like a 7, 7.5. I
Hmm.
feel like, again, same thing with Adams, the athleticism is just unreal. I mean, when you were at the combine, man, I mean, when he was doing his broad jump, his 3 cone, his anything, I mean, I had a scout tell me at the combine that he didn't look like he belonged there. I mean, he said that he should be already, like, in the real NFL combine, just the way he
Hmm.
was built. I mean, you were there. I mean, he looks unreal, like a machine. And so one thing I didn't like, his production in college wasn't there. So there's a big question mark of can he put it on the field? But what I think helps him is at the Legacy Bowl, when you saw his route running ability, his ability to catch in traffic, to be the leader of the wide receiving core on Team Gaither at the Legacy Bowl. I really think Marquise McLean might have a spot in the NFL, and it looks like, looking back at his college career at Auburn and Southern, he just got into bad offensive schemes, which means in the NFL, as long as he's in the right scheme, Marquise McLean can probably make some noise.
Man, look, I super love his quarterback at Southern. Just as like my guy, like that's my dude, man. I love Ladarius Skelton, bro. Super fun dude. Um, so I don't want to ask this question, um, but I must. Do you believe? Do you believe, right, that Ladarius has some struggles at times? Do you believe? Do you believe that affected McLean?
Yeah, for sure. The QB position at Southern was so inconsistent. I don't think any wide receiver was going to be successful. I mean, I don't think it mattered if Malachi Wadman was out there. I don't think it mattered, if a duel was out there from Alabama A&M. The QB position in terms of accuracy and consistency just wasn't there. And on top of that, it was an offense that wasn't centered around the passing attack. So therefore, it just nothing really seemed to click. They never got any rhythm in the passing game. So I do think that the QB position at Southern probably hurt McLean in the long run.
Wow. Okay. I didn't put this on the list, but I'm gonna ask you about Glass. Where you at on Glass?
I would say probably around a 7-2. I think when you look, the one drawback for Akil, man, that's my guy. I got to talk to his dad at the Legacy Bowl and had him on the show more than once. For me, it's just the lack of mobility is the only thing that's going to hurt him. As the QB position evolves, you want guys that can move out of the pocket. You don't need a Lamar Jackson, but you need an Aaron Rodgers, a Patrick Mahomes, whoever, to get out of the pocket and make a play. And for Akil, at times at Alabama A&M, it didn't look like he could get out of the pocket and make plays. And so that's a big drawback. But he has a huge arm. He's a leader too, man. He's just a pro at heart. Like, just talking to him, you can tell he has it together. And so for me, even if he's not a starter in the NFL, I mean, he's one of those guys that could be a 12-year NFL pro and just be in the league, because that's the type of guy you want in the locker room. So I'm gonna give him a 7 right now.
Wow. Okay. Cool. Let's go in with Joshua Williams.
I'm probably gonna, I've apparently 7 is my number today because I'm not too low on anybody, but like I save my tens for like the best of the best. But probably about a 7 too, man. I think he's raw again, but when you look at him, I believe he would at his Senior Bowl performance was where he really stood out because he was rolling against the best of the best at the wide receiver spot. I mean, he had some plays where he got beat, but that short memory, he would come right back and get the next guy. And so I really like that no matter what happened the play before, he was going to go out there and put it all on the line. And so I think him being at the Senior Bowl really, really helped his stock. And I can see, for me, I think he has the potential to possibly be drafted in somewhere around the 5th, 6th round this year.
I'm okay. You know, I don't tell a lot of people this, but I'm gonna keep it a buck with you, right? Were you there Wednesday,
Yeah.
Senior Bowl week? You remember that rainy, crazy rainy day?
hmm
All right. Did you watch him that day?
I don't remember exactly, but I was there, so I probably got to see some of them.
Yeah, wasn't the best day,
No,
right?
yeah, everyone has that one, man. Everyone
Yeah,
has
it
that
wasn't
one.
the best day. He came back though, right?
Mhm.
And what I think it's Thursday. He had some good plays. We didn't get a chance to see it because only certain people were allowed at the indoor practice, right? But at the indoor practice when they put out the video, I think he did pretty well that day. Watching the actual game, I saw they didn't put him in until later on in that game, which concerned me a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there was a lot of stories about him that week, right? And he also had a chance to meet with the media privately that week. But I that concerned me just a little bit that he didn't get a chance to play that much during that time, right? And so because he didn't, I wondered kind of how that coaching staff felt about him, right? And then how much he would be able to put on film and on camera. So, but you believe that he walked away with a pretty decent day
Yeah, I mean,
or a
I
pretty
felt like
decent week.
outside. Yeah, like, especially the first few days, like the first like 2 days, I feel like he was fine, man. I mean, and also with the playing time in the Senior Bowl, man, I've covered it for 3 years. It's so weird how they determine that
Mm.
because you got some big guys who practice and then don't want to play, and then you got guys who have connections with the coaching staff and they want to be out there, and so for me, not the best players don't always play. So I don't know how much you could take away from his playing time. But for me, outside of the one bad day, I felt like he had a solid week. And also on top of that, the connections that he got to make at the Senior Bowl that other HBCU prospects didn't get the chance to, I think helps him in the long run. Because I heard he killed the interview process. I heard he did
Good.
a
Okay.
really, really good job in the interview process. So that I think that goes a long way, especially for later round guys.
Man, I think it goes a long way that he ran pretty well, right? On his
Mhm.
size and him running well, I think that did great for him. And then him just keep showing up. He keeps showing up in everybody's taping. He keeps showing up in everybody's conversations. When I talk to all these people, they keep bringing his name up, right? And that's good for for his stock heading into the draft. All right, I got one more for you, bro. Man, we appreciate your time, man. You've been amazing. I'm gonna just say this outright. Listen, if you didn't understand why people watch Blue Bloods or listen to Blue Bloods, then you got to understand now. I'm pretty sure you do now, right? This man is a wealth of information and knowledge. I thank you so much for bringing that on the show today, bro. We appreciate you. We got one more name for you to kind of, give us a grade on. You ready for it?
Let's do it.
James Houston. What you got on him?
8.5. I feel like, on the field production would be a 10, but he's still an in between guy for me because we don't know where he's going to project. Because at Florida, played almost exclusively linebacker, came to Jackson State, was a monster edge rusher. But now you look at his time at the postseason games, the All Star games, they put him back at linebacker. Where are you going to play? That's a big question mark because as sad as it is, a lot of NFL defensive coordinators are going to look at that as a minus because they don't want to have to do the work to figure out where to put you.
Mm.
It's sad, and I've heard that. I heard that with Isaiah Simmons coming out of Clemson as well. There were some coordinators that were like, because we don't know if he's a safety or a linebacker, we're just going to stay away from him because we don't know if he's going to be good at either spot. For me, I still think he is the same way as what I said about Akil, just a pro guy. He's a leader. He comes in and is able to adjust on the fly. Transferring with 1 year left is so dangerous for college players because if you don't produce, you're done. Look at Jamie Newman when he went from Wake Forest to Georgia, ended up not being able to play, messed up his whole career. He went from a Heisman favorite to I don't know what he's doing right now. And so that's always a big risk. And James Houston made the most of it. I thought he was the best player in the SWAC last year, by far the most dominant. But because I don't know where he's going to end up, I have to take a little bit off his grade. But for me, if he gets in the right situation, puts on some muscle weight, gets a little bit bigger, he's going to be able to fit at that edge pass rushing spot very well. And I think his ceiling is extremely high. So I'm going to give him an 8.5 right now.
Dude, I think his best spot would be edge rusher. I remember Dion talking about this at some point. He said, "Hey, look, he was playing linebacker and he wasn't going to start for us." And that stuck out to me. Him saying that he wasn't going to start for us means that his probably most natural spot may not be at linebacker, right? Even though he did
Right.
make some plays at linebacker in those bowl games, but at the same time, if your coach comes straight out and says, "Oh, he was at linebacker and he wasn't going to start for us," and then they put him on the edge, that tells me that probably your most natural spot, and he even showed it productivity wise, right? Your most natural spot may be coming off that edge, and so hopefully he's able to be some type of hybrid, and a defense can use him in that way.
Yeah, I agree. I think once he finds his role, I would love if the Chiefs got him. I know he's met with Kansas City a few times. If he goes to Kansas City and gets paired up with with that D line with Chris Jones and some of those guys,
Yeah,
it's going to be a problem.
yeah, yeah. He's going. Oh, okay, nice, nice. I see you, bro. I see you. It's gonna be a problem. The problem's
Yep.
gonna be a problem. I got you. All right, cool, man. Yo, tell people where they can find your amazing content, bro. Great interviews, phenomenal information. Where can people find your content?
Hey man, first off, thank you again for having me, man. This was great. You can find us on YouTube, the Blue Bloods. It's youtube.com/C/the Blue Bloods. Find us on social media at the underscore Blue Bloods on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I believe it's at the Blue Bloods Pod. Man, just give us a follow, give us a subscribe, man. We got interviews coming down the pipeline, a lot of recruiting content, spring game content. And again, man, thank you so much for having me on, man. Can't wait to do this again.
Yeah, bro. Hey, this is definitely happening again. So yo, shout out to Off Script. Because I know you're on his show, right? A lot. And so I understand why you're a valued guest there as well, man. Thank you so much for being here. We truly appreciate you. Bro, we ask this to everybody. We are praying podcast here, man. Somebody's looking at this right now and they're like, yo, I like Blue. That's a cool dude, man. And I want to pray for him, man. How can people pray for you? What can people go to God for you about?
Hey man, I luckily, I'm blessed to be where I am, man. So, really and truly, man, just all the support and just keeping all the podcasters, all this community, man, keeping us all safe and keep us thriving, man. So, any prayer requests at all, man, just for overall health, safety, all that kind of stuff, man, it's appreciated. But for me, man, just do my thing. And I appreciate all y'all for, at least giving me a little bit of a platform and actually wanting to hear what I got to say, man. So thank all y'all.
For sure, bro. Yo, you getting ready for that podcasters combine?
Hey man, so I was supposed to be in it and I got a job doing some work for On3 Sports, and so I had to pull out of it. But I told Scotty, I was like, if you schedule it, I was like, listen, I'm getting you my schedule and I'm gonna be there next year, man. I can't let them think I'm just ducking the smoke. So I'll be there next year. Don't worry.
Yo, I'm hearing this happening in May sometime.
Yep.
So I'm hearing that. So I'm working out right now, trying to get myself prepared for it. We will
Hey,
see.
they were a bit unfair, man. I'm a former O lineman. They were like, "Let's do the 40 and the 3 cone." I'm like, "Can we give your boy a shot here?" Like, I'm a former O lineman. I don't do the 40, but it's fine. It's fine. Hey, I'll still bring all the work Scotty wants, and I got him in one-on-ones. I told him in CFL I'm locking them down. Don't let the O lineman body fool you.
Okay, okay. Yo, hey, I'm a seaman. I talked to Regis Cut Day, and I was trying to like Regis. I'm saying, hey man, I'm really thinking about coming, right? I know I'm a small timer. I didn't get the invite yet, but if I get the invite to this combine, I'm gonna be in that train
Hey, man, I love man. I hope to see you there.
for sure, man. Appreciate you, bro. All right, y'all. Look, go follow him, man. Listen, hold on, watch this. Hold on. I want them. Um, I want people to follow you. I want people to follow you ASAP, right? So I'm gonna do this real quick. I'm gonna put this on the screen. I need people to know where you're at so they can go and follow you. Go make that move, y'all, right now. Phenomenal content, great interviews, y'all. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate your time. God bless you, brother. All right, y'all. We love you. God bless you. Thank you so much for being here. Pay attention later on for the draft. We're doing a mock draft later too. All right, we out.